I've said many times before, I've said, if it's not going to zero, it's going to 1 million. The reason it would go to zero is it's illegitimate or getting banned. And so the question is it illegitimate? Well, obviously not. It's an asset without an issuer. It's the world's first digital commodity and the greatest digital commodity. It's the only globally acknowledged digital commodity. There is controversy about everything else. Bitcoin is the one non-controversial thing. So it is a legitimate asset. And is it being banned? Obviously not. The Chinese haven't banned it. It's deemed property in China. The Russians haven't banned it. It's property in Russia. The Americans haven't banned it. It's property in America. All of the controversy in our marketplace right now is surrounding crypto exchanges, the trading of unregistered securities, other tokens, and stable coins. And then the usage of these crypto tokens as a high-speed dollar substitute, a currency substitute. There's lots of controversy there. There will continue to be controversy. It is unclear how all that sorts itself out, except for the fact that there are two great conclusions you can come to over the past 24 months. Wall Street, the regulators, and the mainstream investment community endorses Bitcoin and appreciates Bitcoin. And everybody's skeptical of the rest of the crypto ecosystem. Right? Bitcoin, yes. Crypto, not so sure. Right? So that's where we are right now. I have met with lots of executives from these companies that are bringing spot ETFs to market. I can tell you for a fact, nobody wants to fix Bitcoin. Nobody wants to change Bitcoin. They've approached it with humility. They've approached it with grace. Their view is Bitcoin is a digital asset. People in the world seem to want it. We should do our part to provide services to make it easy to acquire and hold Bitcoin. Now, in time, right, the first and easiest step and the most critical step is that spot ETF, because that'll open up the super highway it's like a power line for hundreds of billions of dollars of capital to flow into the ecosystem. But eventually, Google and Apple will embrace it. And when Google or Apple embraces Bitcoin and Apple puts some sort of Bitcoin signing device in the iPhone, there will be some people that will be skeptical and they will say, oh, we could trust Apple, and that's reasonable. And other people will say, oh, well, it's an option for the masses to know how to operate their own hardware wallet. And there'll be a debate. And then there'll be an avalanche, and then Apple, the Amazon will do something, and then Microsoft will build it into their browser, and then people will hate that. And then some other company will come up with a better Bitcoin-only one, and we'll like that. And maybe they'll succeed, and they'll grow, it'd be 10 or 100x, and maybe they won't. And then maybe at some point, we'll wake up and there'll be $4 billion, which will be of 4 billion people, and they will self-custody some amount of their own Bitcoin. And then they will have other Bitcoin that will be in an ETF in their retirement plan, because their employer required that they actually have their retirement plan with a securities custodian. And we should embrace everybody that supports Bitcoin, however they support Bitcoin. You won't agree with them. Maybe you won't like that nation, and you won't like that company, and you won't like that money manager. And you will always have the option to do your own thing, and that's what makes Bitcoin beautiful.
Michael Saylor believes that while some investors were initially uninterested in Bitcoin and gravitated toward other cryptocurrencies, the Bitcoin ETF has caused a massive influx of investors to return to the dominant crypto asset. He highlights Bitcoin's position as the reliable, trusted network that stands the test of time when other assets fail to provide stability.
The most important one, the one that's going to dominate this cycle, is going to be the spot ETF, because futures ETFs are just literally defective, right? If I said I'm going to charge you a 10% fee per year to invest your money, like your money's gone in 7 years, right? I'm just taking it all, right? So that makes no sense. So the spot ETF is going to be critical. It's going to solve the problem of how do I custody the Bitcoin. Most of these companies and investors, if they want to establish their own custody program, it's very scary, right? Have you noticed how many custodians have failed? And the issue is, how do I find an institutional grade custodian? And okay, well, you could say like you should self-custody. Well, how does, who at Microsoft is supposed to self-custody? Like, do you want to get, you're going to give $100 billion of Bitcoin to the CFO and have the CFO walk around with the private keys? Like, who wants that job, right? Like, how are you going to do multi-sig? Well, which 3 people at Microsoft, right? So it becomes a question, and it takes them a year or 2 years to answer the question. And is it possible? Sure it is. It just takes 2 or 3 years. And so if we want mass adoption, we have to solve the problem of custody, and then we have to solve the problem of compliance, right? If I'm an investor and I have $10 billion of capital and I want to buy $100 million worth of Apple stock, I can do it in 30 seconds via BlackRock or via one of my major money managers. And I don't even have to come up with $100 million. I could have a nickel, make a phone call and say, buy $100 million of Apple stock, put the phone down, and have all the money at the end of the day without putting up cash. And it would be my bank, like JP Morgan, that would front me the money. So you see, it's completely financeable, no money down, and do it in 30 seconds. And then it flows into my systems, like my accounting system, my compensation system. When Apple stock doubles, portfolio manager that actually made the buy wants to get paid. So how do I attribute the success of the investment to the person that made the investment when it's changing every minute of the day? How do I pay taxes on it? How do I make sure I don't have a Nick Leeson situation where one portfolio manager makes a $10 billion bet and bankrupts the entire firm, right? So these are all pedestrian problems, but they're solved by that spot ETF plugged into the money manager. That's going to be the number one driver, right? And that's going to dwarf everything else. And